Hello, friends. Today we are going to look into another chapter, Mauritius, a lesson written by R.K. Lakshman. So let's begin.
The world atlas I have with me has many little dots and specks which have really nothing to do with the world or geography. It is an old one, and time, the weather, and generations of cockroaches have put them there. So it was with some difficulty that I was able to locate Mauritius in the vastness of the Indian Ocean. It is a tiny speck of an island situated below the equator on the 20th parallel, some 4,500 km southwest of Bombay.
So, in the first paragraph, the writer says that he had a world atlas. A world atlas is nothing but a book of maps. So, he says he had a book atlas with him, or a book of maps with him, which had many dots and specks. What are specks? They are nothing but tiny spots. So he says these tiny spots were created in the entire map, but it had nothing to do with the world or geography. What is geography? Study of places. So he says there's nothing actually in the map, but they are in the book. They are small holes. Now, how did those holes be created? It was created because of the time, the weather, and generations of cockroaches. So it was a book which was not used for a long time. It was kept somewhere in the book stand, and when he took it now, he had seen many holes or small tiny spots on it. And he says it was very difficult to find that one place called Mauritius. It was very difficult, but finally he was able to locate it. And that in the vastness of the Indian Ocean. What is vastness? Great extent or size. So it is huge. You know that Indian Ocean is spread in a longer distance. So here he tells it's very difficult to find that one place called Mauritius. But finally he was able to search or find it. It is a tiny speck. So again he says that Mauritius is a small tiny speck. That is, it's a tiny spot of an island situated below the equator. What is equator? It's an imaginary line around the middle of the planet, and it divides the entire world or entire earth into two hemispheres. You know that, the northern and the southern. Okay, and it is on the 20th parallel. So here 20th parallel means it's a circle of latitude that is 20 degrees south of the earth's equator, that is below the equator, and some 4005 kilometer southwest of Bombay. So he is telling the distance from Bombay to Mauritius also.
Our aircraft is bearing us towards it. Through the occasional gloss in the clouds, I glimpse the ocean spread like a bluish grey steel sheet. There are acres and acres of cloud below me, having all sorts of funny shapes in an odd abstract way. Curiously, they resemble figures in the ancient legends of China, Rome, Greece, India, and what have you.
In the second paragraph, he tells that his aircraft is bearing us towards it. That is, it is taking him towards Mauritius. He was on a flight. Now, through the occasional gloss, what is gloss? Shine. So there was a shine in the clouds, and he glimpsed. What is glimpse? A look that he gave, a quick look, or just a brief look, or noticed that the ocean spread like a bluish gray steel sheet. So it was the ocean below. If you have traveled in an aircraft, in an airplane, you can observe that from the height you can see the ocean, and you can say that it is like a sheet. As he has described, it's similar. It looks like a bluish gray sheet, and it shines because of the sun, and that's why he tells it looks like a steel, because steel also shines because of the sun rays fallen on it. Now there are acres and acres of cloud. What is acres? Large amount. It's a usually in a unit of land we say it's so many acres of land, but here he has used that word for the description of the clouds. So acres and acres of cloud below me having all sorts of funny shapes in an odd abstract way. What is odd abstract? That is existing in thoughts and not real. Now, for example, when you look at the clouds from your home or from your school, sometimes they look or they take the shapes of some images or some objects or some animals. You observe it. So he also is describing the same thing. That is, when he was observing the clouds from the aircraft, he came to realize that it was some kind of funny shapes. Now, curiously, that is in a strange way, they looked like the ancient legends of China, Rome, Greece, India, and what have you. So, here he's telling it resembles figures. What is resemble? Look alike. So, here he tells somehow it was reminding him the images or the funny shapes that had been formed by the clouds. It reminded him of the figures of some legends of China, Rome, Greece, India, and what have you. Now, this what have you refer generally to other things of the same kind. So, it is just a phrase there. So, like, for example, you can decorate this room with lamps, sofa, tables, and what have you. That is whatever you have with you, similar kind or similar things. Then using that things you can do it. Okay, so it's generally refers to the other things of the same kind.
I cannot help drawing a comparison, albeit ridiculous and rather far fetched, between my vague observations at 10,000 meters watching the clouds and what I learn of Mauritius later. This tiny island has an astonishingly similar variety, strange juxtapositions, incongruities, odd mixtures of race and language.
In the third paragraph, the writer says that he cannot help drawing a comparison, albeit, that is albeit. You pronounce it as albeit. Okay, it means though extremely silly, now albeit ridiculous and far fetched. So here it means that though it is extremely silly and doubtful, between my unclear observations at 10,000 meters watching the clouds and what I learn of Mauritius later. So he's just making a prediction, but he's not yet reached Mauritius and he has to learn a lot about it. Now, this tiny island has an astonishingly similar variety, strange comparisons, and incompatibility, odd mixtures of race and language. That is, many different kinds of people live in that place. So, we will learn about it.
Here, Africans and Chinese, Biharis and Dutch, Persians and Tamils, Arabs, French and English all rub shoulders merrily with one another and emerge with a peculiar sense of oneness. A Tamil, for instance, bears a deceptively South Indian face and a name to go with it to boot. Radha Krishna Govindan is indeed from Madras. I speak to him in Tamil. He surprises me by responding in a frightfully mangled English with a heavy French accent. Mr. Govindan has no knowledge of Tamil and his tongue has ceased curling to produce Tamil sounds centuries ago.
In the fourth paragraph, he tells that Africans, Chinese, Biharis, Dutch, Persians, Tamils, Arabs, French, and English, they all live together and all rub shoulders. Now, rub shoulders mean mix with. That is, they mingle with each other merrily. What is merrily? Happily. And they all live with peace and oneness, that is unity. Now, a Tamil, for instance, now he's giving an example. A Tamil who bears a deceptively South Indian face. What is deceptively? In a way that gives a misleading impression. That is, when you look at someone, you immediately get an impression about them, like that person might be what we have thought. But actually, that person won't be like that. And he has a name to go with it, to boot. What is to boot? Also, it fits with it. Now, his name was what? Radha Krishna Govindan, and he was from Madras only. Now, he spoke to him in Tamil. Who is that? Who is I there? The writer, R.K. Lakshman, he goes and speaks to him in Tamil. But surprisingly, what happened? He responded in a frightfully mangled English with a heavy French accent. Now, here it was, now mangled is nothing but damaged or crumpled. So he replied him back in English, but it was in a French accent. So Mr. Govindan has no knowledge of Tamil. He was from Madras, he was a Tamilian, but he did not have any knowledge about Tamil, and his tongue has ceased curling to produce Tamil sounds centuries ago. That means he used to live in that place itself and he doesn't have the touch of talking in Tamil. So now what happens? He cannot, his tongue has ceased. What is ceased? Stopped. So it means that it cannot turn any more towards the curling to produce Tamil sounds. Now, for example, when we are talking or we are saying some words, we have to turn our tongues. So here, Radhakrishna Govindan, it feels as if his tongue has stopped turning to produce those Tamil sounds centuries ago.
Like others of his fellow men, his ancestors were brought to the island as slaves or later as indentured laborers to work in sugarcane fields and factories or to cut timber in the jungle and haul it to the boats. Their roots in their original homelands withered and disappeared with the passage of time. All of them together happily came to share in the triumphs and defeats of whoever happened to be their masters among the buccaneer trinity of those days, the Dutch, the French, and the English, who constantly waged battle for the possession of the island for its spices and sugar, or just for the strategic position on the maritime route to the east, conveniently placed as it was for piratical purposes.
So, just like other people, even his ancestors were brought to this island as slaves and they were used as indentured laborers, that is, binded or slavery, and laborers, the workers. They were made to work in sugarcane fields and factories or to cut timber in the jungle. What is timber? Wood prepared for carpentry and howl it to the boats. What is howl? Drag or pull them because it's very heavy. They cannot lift it. So they used to they used to drag it. Now their roots in their original homelands withered. That is their original place where they were born. That roots of their homelands was withered. What is withered? Become dry and disappeared with the passage of time. That is, they, whichever place they lived now, they thought that this is our own country. They forgot about their own birthplace. Now all of them together happily came to share in the triumphs. What is triumphs? Victory and defeats of whoever happened to be their masters among the buccaneering trinity. What is this? The pirates or the robber trinity. Who are those three people? The Dutch, French, and English. And why are they calling them the robbers or the pirates? Here they're calling because they used to rule them. Okay, in olden days, as India was ruled by the Britishers. Similarly, all other places, similar problems were present. So now here he is telling that the people, the locality people who were present there, they all enjoyed when they won, and they would be sad when they lost. So it was about the master's happiness. And it could be anyone at that time. It was the Dutch, the French, and the English. Three people, they constantly engaged in battle for the possession of that island for its spices and sugar. Okay, and it was just for a strategic position on the maritime. What is maritime? It is connected with the sea, so living or found in the proximity of that sea.
However, the Battle of 1810 ended all that in favor of the English. The French surrendered and handed over the island after extracting a favor from the conquerors that the French influence on the island be left intact. The English kept their word to the last day of their rule, which ended in 1968. And so we still have very musical but unpronounceable names like Truox Bisha, Boobasin, Quarterbones, Cure Pipe, Ross Bell, and so on.
Now, however, the Battle of 1810 had finally ended, and it was the English who had won it, and the French had surrendered, and they had handed over the island to the conquerors. Who are the conquerors there? English, that is the Britishers. And but they had kept one condition, and what was that? That whatever French influence that they had in that island, the architecture and everything, nothing should be destroyed. It should be left intact. And the English kept their word to the last day of their rule. Now, that also ended in the year 1968. But what happened? The names of some places are still very unpronounceable names, but it is very musical. Now, for example, Truox Bisha or Bew Basin, Quarterbones, Cure Pipe, Ross Bell. All these are little difficult to pronounce. These are the names kept by the English or the French or the Dutch at that time, but those names are still being used. They have not changed it.
The people are extremely relaxed and warm towards strangers. In the streets, in the bazaar, in restaurants, it is common to be greeted and smiled at as if you were a long lost friend. Coming from Bombay, with my precast grim expression of a city dweller, I react awkwardly at first to such spontaneity and feel ashamed that I am not even able to produce a matching smile. The people are extremely relaxed and warm towards strangers. That is, they are very welcoming towards the strangers. They are very kind. And in the streets and in the bazaar and in the restaurants, it is common to be treated with a smile. Even if they don't know you, they treat the strangers with a smile as if they know you, as if they are like long lost friend. R.K. Lakshman, who is from Bombay, he tells that he also tries to give them a spontaneous smile. He also tries to give a spontaneous smile. What is spontaneous? Unforced, but feels ashamed and that he is not even able to match the smile that is given by others. The same atmosphere of friendliness prevails even in Port Louis, the seat of government. The cabinet ministers and others in high positions do not act as if they were born to the grace. They are just like ordinary people one bumps into in an airport lounge or in a hotel lobby. They are unassuming, accessible, communicative, and above all, go about with a protective shield of hangers on and security men to repel casual approaches. I am shown a modest looking flat in a busy street lined with shops and crawling traffic. It is the residence of the Prime Minister of Mauritius. Port Louis brings to my mind Joseph Conrad and Mogham. This little port town seems as if it were built at the suggestion of these writers to suit their novels and short stories. Merchant ships, trawlers, dinghies stand anchored in the harbor with cobwebs of ropes and festoons of flags hanging from their masts. Grimy sailors and dock hands in seamen's caps lounge on oil drums and packing cases or lean against bleak warehouse walls, smoking pipes. Sugarcane fields, like a carpet of green, cover the island on all sides as far as the eye can see up to the foot of the distant blue mountains that ring the island, a volcanic happening of geological ages. These mountains do not have the traditional monotonous pyramidal shapes. Their outlines are freakish and whimsical with unexpected sweeps and perpendicular drops and pinpointed peaks, precariously doing a balancing act with boulders as big as a skyscraper. Now he talks about the atmosphere of the government in Port Louis. Now, Port Louis is nothing but the capital of Mauritius, and in the government or the cabinet ministers, all these ministers who are in the high positions, they don't have that pride of being in that post. Instead, they are very humble. They are like a ordinary person, and in case they meet someone on a way, on a passage or any road, they try to be very modest. And what happens is, in our country, what happens is, any famous personality comes in front of you, then what happens, like entire crowd gets gathered. So what happens, the bodyguards of that personality, they try to prevent you from reaching them. But over there, it's the complete opposite. There is no bodyguard at all. They are just like a normal people there, and nobody is there to stop them. They just come there, meet everyone, they have an interactions, and they move. So it's a very friendly nature there. Then he talks about the area where he stays. He was looking for a flat in a busy street, and looking at that area, he is reminded of two people, and that is Joseph Conrad and Maugham. Now these two are very famous writers. And then he talks about the ships, trawlers, dinghies, all these are being harbored in a cobweb. What is cobweb? It's a spider web of ropes and festoons, that is garlands of flags hanging from their mast, that is the flag pole. Now here he is telling that trawlers and dinghies. Now trawlers is also a commercial fishing vessel designed to separate fishing trawl or nets, and dinghies are nothing but the small boats. So here he's telling that all these are being gathered in the harbor, and he's talking about the entire area. Now he's talking that the fields are covered with greenery, that is the sugarcane fields. It's as if very soothing for the eye, and in the distance you can see the blue mountains. It looks like an island, and the volcanic happening, all this, it looks very beautiful. As well as he's trying to say that the sailors in the harbor, it looks very beautiful. They're filling the oil drums, all these, it looks a very beautiful scene. And then he tells that all these are like, it is like a balancing act with boulders. Now the large rocks are being kept, and it is as huge as a skyscraper. The mountains, they look very beautiful. It looks as if huge rocks have been kept there. There is no railway in Mauritius. Well maintained trunk and arterial roads connect various villages and towns, cutting through the ubiquitous sugarcane fields. Although the whole country is only 64 km by 50 km in size, driving around the island for sightseeing makes me feel curiously that I am in a place as sprawling as India. But the excellent weather and breathtaking landscapes all round make up for many hours spent just sitting inside a car. It is very common for people to drive up and down an average 70 km to a cocktail party or dinner with friends. R.K. Lakshman tells that in Mauritius there are no railways. Okay, there are no trains at all. So well maintained trunk is nothing in the body, and arterial roads. Now arterial roads are nothing but the main roads. They are divided into three, that is roads, railways and rivers. But as you know that there are no railways at all, so these in Mauritius, it is either by the roads or it is either by the rivers, the traveling. And although the whole country is only 64 kilometer by 50 kilometer in size, that is, it is very small. So driving around it, it's very easy. It's not like as larger area spread, just like India. It's not like that. It's very small, and the weather and landscapes are very beautiful. So even if you're sitting in one car and just traveling many hours, you are not tired. It's very beautiful. You will enjoy it.
I note the trees here are so unlike the gigantic specimens I have seen in Andaman Islands. Disappointingly enough, they are short and gnarled even in the interiors of jungles, looking just like abnormally overgrown bonsai. These jungles have no tigers or lions or elephants or any kind of wildlife. There are not even poisonous snakes or insects. The bat was the only mammal before man arrived on the island with the monkey and the deer centuries ago. Unfortunately, the birds are dwindling in number and variety. The dodo, a bird which could not fly and which certainly had no claims to beauty and elegance, was a native of this island and mercifully is extinct now. And so are the giant tortoises of the Aldabra variety, of which a few specimens have been brought and kept in an enclosure in the botanical gardens of Pompeii.
So here he tells about the trees. They are very huge, and there are many types of trees that are found here, just like he had seen in the Andaman Islands. And disappointingly enough, now these trees are very short and gnarled. What is gnarled? They are rough, so they're twisted with age. And in the interiors of the jungles, these trees are very found and looking just like some overgrown bonsai. And there are no tigers, there are no lions, there are no elephants and any kind of wildlife in Mauritius. There are not even poisonous insects and snakes. The only mammal that was arrived to Mauritius was bat. Before man, the only mammal that was there in that island or in that Mauritius was a bat. And later on there was a monkey and deer centuries ago. So here what he's telling is the birds are also decreasing, dwindling in number and variety. That is, they are diminishing in amount and strength. And there was a bird called dodo. It's a bird which cannot fly. So, and it is not even beautiful to look, but that was a native of this island and now it is extinct. You're not able to find it anymore. He's talking about the giant tortoises and of the Aldabra variety. There's a variety of it. So those are kept in the botanical gardens of Pompeii.